Hey, everybody, welcome. It's so great to be talking to all of you. We've got a great show. And by the way, one of the things I love is getting on a call like this, a show like this, and talking to somebody that lives and breathes the content. Kari Knutson joining me here today. Knutson speaks, and you've heard a bit about what she does in her life, in her business, in her coaching platform. But more importantly, it's what her message is. When we're talking about emotions, and now we're looking at emotional intelligence, and some of the really cool research coming out now about emotional intelligence and human development is just profoundly groundbreaking. And I want to give you an example later on in the show. But when you think about, Kari, and you think about being a professional speaker, making it through COVID, both of us, the people that go out and like get on a stage and like, hey, everybody, and do like talk. And then we didn't. Then just like it didn't happen. But something else happened. Something else changed. And that's part of the conversation today with Kari. When you think about being in a place where you can't move, there's a word that I have been Googling 2003, Benny, since 2003. And why did I Google the word stuck or stuckness? What is it about being stuck that hit me so hard in 2003 that the show was called Crust Busting Your Way to an Awesome Life? It was all about being crusty and stuck and just not doing anything. Today, Kari is bringing it. How do you get big out loud with Kari? How do you do that? How do you live the complex, funny, and beautiful ride of life now and talk about the complexity of being stuck? This is what we're fired up about today. Kari, great to have you, right? We're fired up about this, no?
Yes, I'm so excited, especially because your work in crust busting totally aligns with my topic this month of being stuck. And that whole idea, I like how all of us call it different things, like your idea of being like the crustiness and being stuck. I love that like metaphor and how that really resonates with sometimes how it feels to be stuck. And
it was me.
Is that how you were feeling? Is that what you were
That
going?
was me back in 2001, 2002, 2003. So let's talk about this for a minute, because this idea of stuckness and emotional intelligence is a really profoundly powerful body of work. When we talk about stuckness, a lot of the times Benny would say, back in the day, we didn't include emotions. No. We just were like, I'm stuck. I can't move.
When you're just supposed to get over it and not really process it, just figure it out, don't process it, and you don't really talk about emotions. I mean, even now, a lot of people have a hard time talking about emotions.
You think? Especially now. Yeah. And let me ask you this question to get us rolling here. We are in a place now where we've never been, really, that I can remember. I'm sure we've been here before. But when I think about a world being at this place where we have been stuck for what, 18 months, some places more than that. And now we're given the green light to be unstuck. But there's no outlet for emotion. And so can you talk about what it means to admit that we're experiencing something?
Yes, well, exactly. That's such a key thing. And what you were saying is emotional intelligence is all around optimizing your expression of your own emotions, right? So when you're talking about that's a big thing, emotional intelligence really touches on the ability for you to have some self-awareness about what's going on with you, name the feelings, and then optimize your expression of them. And that simply means for any given moment or how you feel, like how do you utilize your emotions to help you move forward and to get through things. And when you think about the idea of being stuck, what you said, it's like we have literally and figuratively been stuck because of the pandemic. And some of us are fearing like the transition back a little bit feels weird, because being stuck by the pandemic was an external force that forced us to be stuck, right? It's an external force. But a lot of times there's other things going on with us, even concurrently, where we it's a self-induced stuck. We don't know what to do. We're confused, right? And so now we're coming out of the enforced stuck, the external stuck, and also we might be grappling with our own feelings, like how do I process what I just went through in the pandemic? How do I like restart my life again? How do I make some decisions when I kind of don't know still about how the future is going to look? And so I think all these things are so important to discuss. And the root of them all, the root of how we start to do that, everyone kind of wants to get to the solution quick, like, oh, tell me what to do or how to figure it out. But the real place to start is identifying what you're feeling. And that idea of identifying feelings is at the crux of emotional intelligence. It's one of the big pieces of like identifying your feelings, help the feelings not only get validated, like, oh, this is how I feel, but then you could also move through them. So for example, sometimes if we say in our society, we tend to say things like, I can either be happy, mad, sad, or good, or busy. Those are maybe my options, right? Do you ever feel that way? Those are like how we express ourselves. And I call those really like level 1 feelings. Like they're just kind of like, meh, right? That's kind of how you feel. And really, when we're sad or even angry, that could actually, when we think about a word that really describes how we feel, overwhelmed, depressed, anxious, frustrated, devastated, like finding like really rich words to say how we like, maybe you say I'm angry, like, are you angry or are you disappointed?
Yeah.
But see how different those words are?
Yeah.
But sometimes we like throw everything in the bucket of anger and then we
Yeah.
don't really take time to identify. And so some of us even have a hard time saying, I'm feeling stuck. I'm feeling like I don't know what to do. And the idea of naming it first for what
Yeah.
it is can sometimes be an access point to then moving through it. Instead of if you stay at level 1, where you're kind of like, I don't know, I just kind of whatever, getting through it, or I don't have time to feel my feelings, or I don't even know what, growing up, I'm just supposed to get through it. Like a lot of us
Suck it up. You're supposed to suck it up.
Yeah, suck it up, get through
Yeah.
it.
Just get through it. Don't ask any questions. Don't stop whining.
Yes.
Right.
A
I
lot of
remember we used to give out these little pins at the bell at the phone company. And it would say no whining. I mean, that's a perfect example of a corporate culture where you have to, they used to say you have to leave your personal issues at the door, but you come into work and you may have issues too. So I love the way you're describing this. How are you feeling today, Kari?
Yeah. Oh, I'm like feeling, I have to say, I'm feeling hopeful and excited. And feeling I have this kind of anticipatory, like nervous excitement almost because the summer is opening up and I'm feeling like kind of hopeful. And I have to say, I'm also feeling joyful because some of my flowers bloomed in my front yard and they're showing off today. And I just got to water them and just experience this, when you have just a moment of pure joy from something like a flower or a moment. And I just was like, oh, I just had this feeling of hopefulness today. My flowers bloomed and I felt very hopeful. How about you?
Well, I think that part of this is, well, for me, walking in today was one of those days where I was thinking more about uh, what do I have to do today? What is my to-do list today? Because, in running the show, we have Olivia running the show today, and we are being observed by 3 new producers and who are learning. And so one of the things that I think about is, how can I connect the dots to make sure that the people that need help are getting the help they need? And, just watching, Jacob, mentoring people. But this idea of stuck is so important. Let's talk about this for a minute, because it's really hard sometimes if you are like new to a job. Let's talk about being new to a job. Everybody returning to the workplace now, a lot of people are feeling, wow, is this my job? Do I remember coming in and sitting at a desk? Uh, but I still have my child home and my boss wants me to come in. I mean, we are in uncharted territory, but I love what you said. Now, let's get back to it. If we don't address those issues and we don't use some new language, what happens is I think we act out. So, what does acting out look like? Acting out means we start to be disrespectful. We maybe have a little edge. We're maybe short. We're not open to feedback. So, all these things that will push somebody away so that they don't get into our space, our feeling space. Talk about these behaviors that can show up if we don't have a moment to say, man, I'm unstuck. I know you want me to edit this show, but I don't even have Adobe Premiere loaded.
Well, it's important, I think, when if you're talking about the actual feeling of being stuck, sometimes what happens when you're talking about how it shows up, if you can't identify the feeling, and I even say feeling stuck to me is a feeling, like feeling stuck, because I've even said it to myself, I am stuck right now. Like I don't know what to do. But that idea is if you can express it and name it and say it, to me, then you can hold some space for what that is without trying to fix it or change it. What happens if you cover it and you deny it and you act like it's not happening and you try to push through? Sometimes the outward expression or the projection of that feeling comes off as like you are really frustrated and you project that feeling onto other people, right? Or you can't admit, like, I don't know what I'm doing. So then you say to other people, why can't everyone else get it together? Like you start to see stuckness in other places and other people and you get frustrated by it. Or if life, like little inconveniences that normally would roll off your back, suddenly make you so angry. And sometimes you don't even realize what you're doing. But what I tend to see in my practice as a therapist, I feel like when you study humans, all of us do this. If we repress our emotions or don't let them out in one part of our life, they tend to come out in another. And they may be displaced, but they're the same feeling. We may be angry at ourselves, and then like somebody cuts us off and we get so mad that we then express it's easier to be angry at someone else than ourselves, right? And so we do this all the time. So part of using your emotional intelligence is to bring it back. I like bring it in is what I say. Bring it in. What am I feeling? What am I experiencing? What frustrations do I have? And can I name, like, for example, feelings like being stuck? Who wants to say that? It's not like me, right? We oftentimes want to be like, no, I'm moving forward and I'm progressing. And I can't admit if I have hard or difficult feelings. Like, what if I'm really sad or overwhelmed about something or incredibly angry? Do I get to have those feelings? And again, EQ is about optimizing your expression. So it's like you can still have those feelings, and what do we do with them? And even if you don't want to admit you're stuck, because that can be hard to say out
Yeah.
loud, like, oh man, I'm stuck. But I see it sometimes as a relief. The truth is, right now I'm stuck. And so sometimes we do this thing with dualistic thinking where we're like, well, I'm stuck, so that's it. So, and like either or, I'm either progressing or I'm not. I'm either moving forward or I'm stuck. I'm either making progress or I've done nothing. And I think, again, if you can bring it in and be like, no, just in this moment, I'm stuck. Just right now, in this moment. And stuck can be a moment, or it can be days, weeks, months, and even years in some parts of our lives. I think if you all look back, there's things that plagued different people for a long time where they feel stuck in an area. But if you look at your life in the long game, I think a lot of us can see incredible progress, right? But we don't want to name the feeling for what it is. We certainly don't want to own what we perceive as a negative feeling. And then, oh man, if I can't get rid of this thing fast, I might just well deny it or repress it or something like that. Does that make sense, Dr. Pat?
Yeah,
Like,
it makes sense. It makes total sense. And, part of what the conversation is today is really looking at this in a way where each of us completely understand that we can get unstuck. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to take a look at what are we stuck in and what does stuck really mean? How does it feel? What are we really trying to say when we say I'm stuck? What's interesting when you look this up now, very different when I looked it up, I don't know, 2003. Very interesting what they say about stuck. But the past tense and past participle of stuck is stick. Why aren't we talking about that for a minute? Making something stick. When we come back, Kari's going to take us on a ride. We're going to take a look and dive deeply into not just identify what's going on, but identify our response to what's going on. When we are out there and we find that there's something inside of us that's just causing us to be our own version of the episode of Lucifer, something got to happen. Let's take a short break. Kari Knutson joining us here today. Questions 1-800-930-2819. What are you stuck about? Do you want to get unstuck? And how do you get big out loud? We'll be right back. How do you get big out loud if you don't understand the complexity of being stuck? Right? How do you get big out loud if you don't understand the complexity of being stuck? You know, I mean, if you're somebody like me, what does being stuck look like? What happens when you're playing ping pong and one of the balls gets stuck in your robot and then it doesn't come out? And then when it does come out, it comes out at 100 miles an hour and hits you in the side of the face. That is a very good metaphor for what the effect of stuck is. If you are stuck too long, you build up the energy of stuckness. And we're going to talk about what happens when you're building up the energy of stuckness. And underneath that is fear. Before we do that, I want everybody to know, Kari, how do we find out about you? How do we find out about Knutson Speaks, your coaching platform, all the work you're doing with people? And happy Pride Month for all of you out there right here in the Pacific Northwest.
Yes, happy Pride. That's right. And happy Pride in Colorado too. That's right.
Yeah, I'll say, Kate. All right, good.
Yes, happy Pride everywhere. So you can find out about me at knutsonspeaks.com. That's KNUTSON speaks.com. And I provide, what I do is try to take psychology off the couch and bring it to people no matter, what I'm doing. If I'm speaking to people virtually or now in person again, those have started up again, which has been great, or doing coaching and helping people explore how to really amplify their own EQ to live their lives in ways that are very powerful. And so that's kind of the work that I do, is all around helping people get big in whatever capacity that they can. And through things like doing this show with you has been interesting too, because really talking about it, that's the part about get big out loud. Let's talk about it. Let's jump into hard topics and let's really wrestle with it, because none of this is easy. It's very complex, but it's worth it. I know that for sure. It's worth it.
Yeah. And Olivia, thank you for putting up Kari's website. Thank you for popping that in there. Kari, look, I can't say enough about what people have going on right now. It's so complex that folks don't even know that they need help, but they're not ready. They're not ready to re-enter in the workplace as if normal is normal. In some cases, people are really excited about it. I know here we're trying to follow the guidelines in Washington State. And I think the guidelines, I have to look them up again to just see, but the guidelines have moved away from, look, if you've been vaccinated, ... But people are still trying to find their ways. What is the impact of what we're talking about, though? Across the board, it's fear. It's fear. It's underneath a lot of things. Tell me from your perspective and from looking at the complexity of being stuck, tell me about what fear might drive in people.
Sure. Well, fear, I think, is a huge underlying thing. And a huge underlying feeling that really perpetuates so much. And sometimes we're so scared, it's easier to stay stuck than to make movement, because we can't predict, what's going to happen. And humans love to try to predict what's going to happen. What will happen? Will this work or will that? Will it go this way or that? What if this? What if that? I call it playing what if, that a lot of people really try and to predict the future and say, what if this happens? And it creates a lot of angst, but also fear. And the reality is none of us can control that, right? So, but we're looking now at this, what I think of as the next or new normal is quickly approaching. And we're trying to figure out what our lives are going to look like. If you have a lot of fear or overwhelm, or even what I think of as trauma from what you've experienced in the last year and a half that goes unprocessed, and just try to move ahead, sometimes that's part of naming your feeling, is like, what have I just been through in the last year and a half? You can't be in a crisis and process the crisis at the same time, right? Because your brain can't do those two things. So when you're in the crisis, it's survival mode. And this last year and a half, a lot of us have just been in the day-to-day, what's going to happen today? What do I need to do? How's my job, my family, my life, my friendships, everything changed, right? So a lot of us have some trauma that's just on top of the global pandemic trauma. And on top of like the national conversation on racism that we're having, on top of like the government instability, like all the things on top of those big things, we have like things like I'm sad I didn't get to see my cousin graduate or go to my mom's
Yeah.
birthday or see my family, like, or my pet died or whatever, like the things that we all go through, right? So we have a lot to process before we can move forward. But sometimes that feeling of being stuck, it's easier to just repress those feelings or say, I don't want to get into that, than it is to like, let's open this up and see what we've been through, say our truth. And that's part of like identifying feelings. And part of saying, like, man, this was tough. Or the reason I'm feeling stuck moving forward is because I don't even know what my choices are right now. Right. Or I'm not quite sure. Or I'm not the same person I was before the pandemic. Right. And so maybe me being stuck is because my choices need to be different because I'm different.
Yeah.
Right. So all of that is a lot. You can't just jump, forward. And I also think fear, what you're to your point, is like, it's easier to blanket. We are scared of so many things, right? And the idea of fear, it's easy to say I'm scared, right? And then say, okay, then it means I don't have to do anything about it. Fear is just a really good indicator of like, something might be changing, or I might be out of my comfort zone, or I might have a big learning curve. There's a difference between fear and danger. There's a difference between fear and danger.
Thank you.
And that's what I think we really have to recognize. Sometimes when we're feeling the fear, it's a really good indicator of growth, change, opportunity. And that it is a signal that lets you know, if you're in tune with your emotions, like, oh, I'm feeling fear. Let's sit with that for a hot second, right? What might that be telling me? Instead of saying that's an excuse just to give up or stay stuck because I'm scared. So this is all kind of, again, the complexity of our emotions and the ability to not judge them as good or bad. Fear is actually really helpful sometimes. If we look at it in a way that says,
Yeah.
how can I analyze myself in this moment and not use it as an excuse
Yeah.
to stay stuck?
I love what you're talking about because, part of this too is looking at the complex nature to know what to do with fear and how quickly to adjust to it. I was talking with Linda yesterday, and I'm so used to being me and so used to just being here and, being part of the network. I forget sometimes what it was like for me. What I forget sometimes what it was like for me in my corporate environment when I wasn't the owner, when I wasn't the boss, when I would go in and have to learn something, or when I was given a graphics assignment, like manager of corporate graphics, a failing organization, and what it was like for me in that position. And I forget sometimes what it's like to be new in a situation. And so, I know who I am and my personality and what I'm about. But when other people are with you, they don't, right? Like when people first meet me, they see me in a certain way, and I forget that relationship. And so sometimes you have to reflect back and say, when I was in your shoes, would I really ask a question right now? Would I be so afraid because Pat, you're in the room. So Pat, get out of the room so the new people can ask Jacob the question, right?
Mm.
So there's a dynamic of fear and stuckness that has to do with other people, places, and things. When
Oh,
we come back, that's what I want to dig deep under. I want to just pull that layer back and talk about the fact that if fear is fear, there's a healthy fear, like stress. There's stress and then there's eustress, and eustress is good stress. But
mhm.
what happens when you cross that line and you move from a healthy awareness of something that maybe gives you a chill, like do not walk down that aisle at 3 o'clock in the morning in New York City. Don't do that. That is like, don't, that's not smart. Don't do that. Or please don't try to jaywalk in the middle of Times Square in rush hour. That is crazy. When we come back, let's peel it back, because one of the things we have to learn is what happens if I'm feeling a little afraid, I feel a little chill, but here I am, I'm new person on a job and I don't really understand what's going on. Do I have the ability to ask a question? Do I have the ability to make sure I say, I don't get it and understand? Because I'll tell you, as me, Dr. Pat, running a show, I can't tell you how many times I've had to say to either Olivia or Jacob, okay, I don't understand. Am I hitting like the wrong button? I don't know everything. We don't know everything. But when our stuckness gets in the way of our success, what is that like? You know, when my stuckness gets in the way of thinking smartly that the robot is stuck, do not keep trying to have the ball pop out of the ping pong robot, because once it gets unstuck, it will hit you so hard, it will give you a black eye. Let's take a short break, everybody. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. This is a great show for all of you. Get Big Out Loud with Kari Knutson. I get to hang out with her, and I get to hang out with the most incredible people. You know, Kari is an expert when it comes to emotional intelligence. So we've done several shows about that. The other thing you should know is, you know, she's also that brings a fresh perspective to psychology. You know, this is something she and I learned at different points in time, but it's interesting how we got there. It's the idea of taking psychology off the couch. And that means a lot of things. She is a counselor, though, and you should know that. But she's a speaker, she's a coach. She will help you pull together whatever you need to pull together in your life so you can move forward. You know, today is a very important conversation because we're talking about the complexity of being stuck. Who hasn't felt like they are stuck? You know, I mean, it doesn't matter where you are. I'm sure you've been at that place where you have felt stuck. Maybe in some cases you haven't. Kari, what is the best way for people to find out about you, to work with you, to follow you, all of the above?
Sure. So you can find me anywhere on social media at Knutson Speaks. That's Knutson Speaks. And my website is knutsonspeaks.com. And on there's all information about the presentations that I offer, the coaching that I do. And actually during the pandemic, I started off with some interesting, one of my trainings was called Transcending the Unknown. And now people want a new talk called Thriving Through Change. And I thought it was interesting that like I'm developing talks to like update the times that we're going through. So the goal of all my work is that it's useful, it's practical, and it's accessible. And that's what I'm about.
That's it. That's what I love. And yet at the same time, it's like we take the deep dive into conversation. This is a deep dive conversation. So let's get to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, here we are. We talked about understanding fears, but is that enough? I mean, great. I understand my fear. I understand my fear of a lot of things. I don't swim, but I love the water. That is paradoxical. What do you do with that, right? People won't let you on their boat if you don't wear like a life protector. I understand you can't go, what is that? Diving if you don't know how to swim. Well, okay, I can paddle, but swimming, I don't know. My body's not made for swimming. But there's a fear that one might have. How do we get underneath that fear beyond understanding the fear? There's something else going on, because some people can just punch through the fear and skydive, and other people are like, no, I'm not getting off the plane.
Totally. That's such a good example. Like the people that just jump out, they're the people that will sign up and then hell no, I'm not jumping. Right. But that's really good because, like you say, you can understand you have fear, but if you don't, the next level is examine your beliefs around that. And sometimes we believe things about ourselves that simply are not true. And that's part of like taking some time to examine them. And when I say that we believe things about ourselves that aren't true, sometimes people have told us things that then we start to think of as truth. You're not college material. You can't handle that kind of job. I don't know who you think you are, but we don't do those things in our family. Or like, or even trying, those are negative things, but even trying, people saying, you know, you'll never be rich, but you'll always be happy. Or the things that like, you're just not a good speller, or you've never been athletic.
Yeah, like me trying to fix my hair right here, right? Like this like fixing thing, like with the hair, it's never been my strength. But Linda could come in here and within 15 seconds, all of this would look great.
They give the gossip.
But how do we get to accept ourselves despite?
Well, part of this idea is examining your belief system so you can accept who you actually are, not who you think you should be or what other people. So like the idea about beliefs, especially around being stuck, like sometimes when we say the belief system is so limiting sometimes if we don't say, does this belief serve me anymore? Is it helping me get where I need to be? Is it protecting me about something I don't need to be protected from? Is it a cover is fear a cover for something else? Like fear is a big cover, right? For like a lot of, like, here's an example. A lot of times people will say, they look for a job and let's say they don't fit every criteria on it and they're like, well, I couldn't do that job. And it's an easy way to get an excuse, like, see, there's one thing I'm missing, then I can't apply. Like, so then we believe we made up a story that somehow we have to have every little thing on that box to apply. And a lot of times I find like if you have most of the skills and you apply and say you're willing to learn, people would take a motivated, thoughtful candidate over someone that checked on every single box. But we limit ourselves, like, well, it said you have to have all this and I don't have it, so I'm not going to even apply, or I'm not going to even try. Or like the idea of like, well, I've been told I'm not athletic, so I guess I kind of feel like I want to move my body and play soccer, but I guess I'm not athletic, so I won't do that. Right? Then you're like, does that serve you? Does that help you? Does that move the needle forward? And so sometimes examining those beliefs, a lot of times you'll find if you examine a belief is you are stuck because it's actually safe. You're safe, even though you don't feel good and comfortable, at least you know what to expect. Right. So that's the keeping of stuck. So at least even if I'm miserable, I know exactly what to expect. I know exactly what to think and exactly what I'll do. And I can be miserable, but safe. And so part of examining our belief system is saying, like, is it the fear of change? Maybe is it the fear of stepping out of my comfort zone? Is it also the fear of the timing? Like, look at everyone else succeeding and maybe I'm slower than other people, right? Maybe I need a little more time to figure it out. It doesn't mean I'm not capable or that's not possible, especially comparison can really be the thief of joy and a lot of other things. But the idea of comparing yourself to others, that keeps us stuck. So the belief system, sometimes we have to even say, I'd like to do it in a series around being stuck. Identify the feeling. Okay, I'm stuck right now, right? And then understand how fear is playing into that and examine my beliefs at the current moment, either about who I am, what other people said I could do. This is just a quick example too of this, what other people said I could do. When I majored in psychology, so many people said, what are you going to do with that degree? And then so said, are you going to ask people if they want fries with their drink? Like, and then as I progressed, I was like, well, I love this, right? And then I started, so like, well, currently I work in a school as a therapist in a school. And then some people reduce my job to this. It must be nice to play with kids all day.
I know.
Or I bet you enjoy your summers off. Like see how people do that? Then that's like starting to minimize what I find exciting and passionate and awesome and interesting. See how people do that though? Like, what are you going to do with that degree? And if I thought, well, what am I going to do? I guess I shouldn't do this because you think I shouldn't. And I guess I don't know. And sometimes when people say, what do you do with a psychology degree? I'm like, what don't you do? Yeah. Look at my life. It's been amazing because of this degree. It's taken me so many places and it will continue to do so.
Oh my gosh.
With my passion. Same with, has anyone ever said ping pong? Ping pong? You play ping pong? You find passion? Have you ever been demeaned for that hobby or sport or felt like minimized by it?
Well, yeah. What happens with ping pong is, exactly what I said. It's like any sport. We have a couple of people that are really profoundly talented in what they do. Our production team, Jacob, Edvin, Malia, Jamie, all of them, Jessica, Linda, everybody's profoundly talented, Olivia, in something specific they do. And to be talented, you have to work at it. Now, seriously, when I talk about ping pong, yeah, they roll their eyes until they see us play in a competition. And Jessica took a picture. She came to one of my first competitions here, and she took a picture of me. It's a very different look on my face.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Mm-hmm. Look, we're different under different situations. But let's talk about what the underlying belief or notion is that either lets us glide through a situation and hold our peace, or get through a situation and end up showing up as edgy, short, curt, disrespectful, or the third, not showing up at all because of a belief we have. And all of those affect us. All of those affect us. They stop us from applying for jobs. They stop us from applying for school. Sometimes they stop us from going to the grocery store because we don't believe we have enough money to buy milk for our child. How can we help people understand the belief and understand how to change the belief?
Well, that's $1 million question, right? Like, and that's why it's worth to be in the complexity of it, because in order to change your belief system, you have to first know that you have one, right? And see, so like you have to say, what is my belief system about being, like, for example, I'll take an example that I see a lot in women, and myself included. Like, am I beautiful and successful and pretty and smart, and like, how do I show that in the world, right? So like a belief system around that is, I have to be able to do it all. So I'm supposed to like work out, keep my house clean, have a job, take care of my kids, be in a relationship, and make it all work. And my level of success might depend on my weight on this. Like if I look and see my weight's a certain thing, then I'm a success. Or if my bank account shows a certain number, then I'm a success. If my kids are doing well, then I'm a success. So like whatever marker you want to think about your belief system, and that could be around success or even around beauty, right? Like, but you have to acknowledge first, what's my belief system around the thing that I'm struggling with, and acknowledge that first. And then I feel like the way to work through that is the belief system serving me or not, right? And is, what role is fear playing? But also like naming it, like, oh, I'm really struggling with, let's say if I say I'm struggling right now with society's expectations of how I look and the number on the scale and how I feel about myself. And I want to make some changes, but I feel stuck because I don't know how to do that. And am I doing it because of an external force and an internal desire? And then what does success look like? Is it what the doctor says or what I say? If people notice, like, do you see how this all gets into play? And we need to wrestle with that a bit, to say like, what am in this place in my life right now with who I am in this moment? What does that look like for me? So is the number on the scale going to determine success? Is it how I feel about myself when I move? Is it my food choices? What is it that brings it back to me? And this is the thing I think moves the dial forward on anybody being stuck. It has to mean something to you, because society to me always moves to the limiting and a little bit negative in terms of, what are you going to do with that, or ping pong, or what,
Oh my God. You should
so
have heard people talk to me about my psychology degree. Okay, if we
oh,
really want to go off on psychology degrees and what people think of them, let's talk about that. But the point is this: what do we do with that feedback? And this is what I want to talk to you about, because for a long time, that stuck in that just like stuck to me. But I had a game plan for my degree. Of course, I'm not living that game plan because that really was not the game plan I was meant to have with this, right? This is the game plan. But how do we help people hold stand in our power to stay true for who we are? Because in the end, we may not be able, at the dimension we're living in, explain why we have a knowing about who we are, what we want to be, and how we want to be that person. And
yes.
how have you been able to help people stand in their power about that? Look, I did a show, I don't know, the beginning of June, to really kick off Pride in a new way, and to talk about, not only are we going through just, racial, some people call it racial discomfort. No, that's not what's happening. We are now pulled an onion back to identify the racism that we have, the homophobia that we have, the ageism that we have. And by the way, the latest thing, ladies of all ages, if you are not following current events, is the Senate filibustered on a bill that would give women equal pay. Nobody looked at that. But the point is this: how do we get past any of that and understand, who am I? What
Mhm.
do I believe? And with
Mhm.
that belief, how am I going to be in the world, Carrie?
Yes, and that is such a beautiful way to frame it, because the truth of it is, to me, what we do have to go inward and ask ourselves those questions. Normally, what we do as humans, we tend to go outwards, not only for approval, but for solutions. What do you think I should do? Do you like me? Do you think this is good? Is this okay? And then when we get shut down, or we're like, what are you going to do that degree? Or like, what? That's a stupid idea, or whatever. Like, or whatever the judgment is, that then we start to believe that about ourselves or whatever. Part of the magic is when you can go inside of yourself, and but you have to give yourself time and space to do this, and you have to be thoughtful about it, and it can't be done from a place of punishment. So like, I'm going to punish myself into getting unstuck by like being really rigid and like pushing it through and whatever. It's like, it's the antithesis of what you need to do to make progress. Loving yourself, focusing on yourself, and giving time to yourself to see where you're at, not as good or bad, just what is in this moment for me, what is true for me right now. And usually what I see in people is they're doing the best they have with what they have in any given moment. They're doing the best they possibly can, but they don't even give themselves credit for that. And so it's hard to move forward from a place of less than, or constriction, or meanness towards yourself, or judgment. And so the magic, I think, when you come with coming in, is being like, I'm not going to be judgy. I'm going to be an observer. And I'm going to look at what's going on as an observer, but as someone who loves me very much and who doesn't want to criticize, but wants to be curious. Being curious is very different than being critical, right? I'm wondering why I'm doing this. I'm wondering why I'm feeling this way. I can see my emotions in this way. What is around this anger and sadness and overwhelm, or stuckness, or disappointment, or frustration, or devastation, whatever the big words are, the level 2 words, like I said before. That is the place to start. And it also, there's another little key there too, is you have to believe in your worthiness, that you're worth the struggle, that you're worth the time to figure it out, and that no one does truly know better than you. It's great to have trusted friends and supporters and coaches and books and resources, but oftentimes we go down the rabbit hole of those things, and that's like the other or the outside, and we do it at the expense of ourselves. But a lot of us haven't practiced, what do I really want? What makes sense for me right now? What do I need right now? Right. And so some of that's why it's complex, but I do think the key is going inside yourself first, not with criticism, but with compassion and love, and especially curiosity.
Yeah.
Right.
When I was in my corporate skin, and I get in my corporate skin from now and again, and I think that when you have new people in your environment and they don't know you yet, if you ever heard me give somebody instructions, you would think that I am an ex-military. um, but what it is I've learned over time that when people are hungry to learn, they want you to cut to the chase. Tell me what I need to do.
Mhm.
Linda and I were talking about this over the weekend, and Jessica was talking about being trained by Heather, ex-military. And what we decided is we have to apply that same level of training for our new people. We have to be able to say, we gave you a notebook, we gave you a binder, write in it. If somebody shouts out a name of a client, write it down. If you don't know how to spell it, you should ask. Because in our environment, you know this, Carrie, probably you're not going to get another opportunity where somebody is going to say it again. If you had asked Jacob or Olivia or me, or if you even asked Olivia what she just showed on the screen 2 minutes ago, she'd probably say, not exactly sure. We're in a fast paced world. Talk to me about how we can be responsive in a fast paced world, even if we let our fear or get in the way of us. And certainly intimidation is a showstopper. If you're intimidated by somebody, wow,
Mhm.
I've been there.
Yes, intimidation is a showstopper.
Oh,
Fear is, comparison is. See how many things are out there though? And that's
comparison
being
sucks, to be
aware,
honest with you. Yeah.
being aware of the things that are out there that can get you. And also the things that like, well, because sometimes you are like, oh, you have to say out loud, oh, wow, I'm really comparing myself and that's making me anxious. Or like, I feel like everyone else is moving ahead and I'm not, or I feel like stuck in this place and I just don't know how to get out. Part of it is recognizing that, and also we are in a very fast-paced world, and at the same time I still think there is room.
Yep.
What I think, like, bring it in. If you know that you're going to have to ask questions and get out of your comfort zone and jump, like, especially you're talking about in your new employees and their jobs, part of moving forward is even telling yourself before you get in an environment, here's how I want to show up. I want to be that person to ask questions. I'm going to be that person to make sure I understand things. I'm going to be that person in this environment. I need to show up a certain way. So how do I need to steady myself in my holistic part of my life? So in this environment, I can show up. And here's a quick example of something I do. When we were in the pre-COVID world and I would get ready for a talk, I would have to physically, like, I usually would go to the bathroom and just be in the stall and I would shake off everything that had getting there, getting set up, the sound and mic check, whatever. And I would just be like, be present in this moment with these people. Whatever happened to you, whatever, like in one time my car broke down on the way to a place the tow truck guy ended up dropping me off at the gig. And I remember I came in because I had my jacket on and my snow boots, and the tow truck driver had dropped me off. And it was so funny because I was flustered and I was like not ready to engage with this audience. But I literally was like, I need 1 minute. I went to the bathroom, took off my jacket, shook it off. And I'm like, you need to be present for these people in this moment. You can process your crazy car breakdown, truck driving, getting dropped off by the tow truck driver in about 2 hours. But right now, be present, show up as the best person for these people. Because in this part of your life, we have different parts of it. You need to show up as this person right now. Right. So being conscious of things like that can really help you in different environments. It doesn't mean you're on all the time, though. And that's, finding space to process, slow down, be thoughtful. All those things are really important.
Yeah. Stairwells. I am a stairwell kid. I grew up sleeping on the fire escape. So anything that looks like a fire escape, I'm like you. I will sit in a stairwell. There's something about a stairwell. And, it just, and then you get annoyed because the people that are same person walking up and down, are you okay? Are you okay? And you're like, dude, I'm like, okay, I need a moment.
I need a minute. Right?
Yeah. And then he realized, no, you're really not okay. Kari, thank you so much. Thank you for everything today.
Thank you, Dr. Pat. I always love our conversations, and I hope everyone out there finds ways to think about being stuck in a different way and looks at themselves with compassion and thoughtfulness, and especially curiosity, as a way to get unstuck and move forward and do great things in their lives. And to all you psychology majors, I see you. You can do a lot with it.
Trust us, you can. We'll have to do a show on that. Hey, everybody, let's take a short break. We'll be right back.
You have been listening to Get Big Out Loud Radio, where we explore the complex, funny, and beautiful ride of life with me, Kari Knutson, joining Dr. Pat live every second Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific on TransformationTalkRadio.com. I will help you to know which thoughts are keeping you small in order for you to get big. Get big and live your life out loud. For more information, visit KnutsonSpeaks.com.